In the misty mountains of Portugal, colorful palaces rise above the clouds, hidden tunnels disappear beneath ancient forests, and every pathway feels like a forgotten fantasy kingdom brought to life. From the magical towers of Biester Palace to the mysterious underground world of Quinta da Reglera, Sintra feels less like a real city and more like a dream hidden in the mountains. Welcome to Dynamic Expeditions. Episode 118, The Magical Palaces of Sintra. Portugal European Castle Sparkles. Today's 10th Sintra famous palace is National Palace of Sintra. Located in the heart of Sintra, this magical medieval palace is one of Portugal's oldest royal residences. Famous for its giant twin chimneys, royal halls, and classic Portuguese architecture, the palace feels like stepping directly into a forgotten kingdom hidden within the mountains. What makes this palace truly special is its peaceful atmosphere. Surrounded by narrow old streets, foggy hills, and colorful town views, the entire area feels cinematic and unreal. Even from far away, the palace's massive white chimneys dominate Sintra's skyline. Fun fact, the palace is over 1000 years old, and its giant white chimneys can be seen from across Sintra. History. National Palace of Sintra was once the royal residence of Portuguese kings and queens during medieval times. Over the centuries, many rulers expanded and redesigned the palace, turning it into one of Portugal's most important royal landmarks. Best time to visit: March to May cherry blossom, September to October fallen leaf. Travel tips: visit early morning for peaceful palace views. Explore Sintra's nearby old streets and cafes on foot. Foggy weather gives the palace a magical cinematic atmosphere. Price: €13 1250 rupee INR. Today's 9th Sintra famous palace is Seteais Palace. Seteais Palace is one of Sintra's most elegant and luxurious royal destinations. Built during the 18th century, this breathtaking palace is surrounded by peaceful gardens, mountain landscapes, and grand royal architecture that feels straight out of a fantasy movie. The palace is especially famous for its giant royal archway, which perfectly frames Sintra's magical mountains and colorful scenery. During sunset, the entire palace glows with golden cinematic lighting, making the atmosphere feel calm, royal, and unreal at the same time. Fun fact today, Seteais Palace has been transformed into a luxury heritage hotel where travelers can actually experience royal-style living inside the palace itself. History. Seteais Palace was originally built for Dutch royalty and wealthy Portuguese nobles during the late 18th century. Over time, it became one of Sintra's most iconic luxury landmarks known for elegance and aristocratic beauty. Best time to visit: April to June Blackson with rays. Travel tips: visit during sunset for the most cinematic lighting. Explore the palace gardens for panoramic mountain views. Foggy evenings make the palace feel even more magical. Price: €15 1450 rupee INR. Today's 8th Sintra famous palace is Biester Palace. Hidden deep within Sintra's magical forests, Biester Palace feels like a secret fantasy kingdom forgotten by time. Surrounded by foggy hills, mysterious pathways, and giant trees, this palace creates an atmosphere that feels both cinematic and unreal. The palace is famous for its Gothic interiors, dark royal architecture, and peaceful gardens covered in mist. Every corner of Biester Palace looks like a scene from a fantasy movie, especially during cloudy weather when the entire area becomes mysterious and dreamlike. Fun fact, many travelers call Biester Palace Sintra's hidden fantasy palace, and it became globally famous after appearing in international films and cinematic productions. History. Biester Palace was built during the late 19th century as a luxurious private estate for wealthy elites. Over time, its unique Gothic beauty and mysterious atmosphere turned it into one of Sintra's most fascinating hidden landmarks. Best time to visit: March to May. Cherry blossom. Travel tips: foggy weather gives the palace its most magical appearance. Wear comfortable shoes because forest pathways can be steep and slippery. Early morning visits create the best cinematic atmosphere. Price: €14 (1,350 rupee INR). Today's 7th Sintra famous palace is Queluz National Palace. Often called the Portuguese Versailles, Queluz National Palace is one of the most luxurious and elegant royal palaces in Portugal. Surrounded by giant gardens, royal fountains, and golden architecture, the palace feels like stepping directly into the world of kings and royal celebrations. Inside the palace, travelers can explore breathtaking golden halls, detailed royal decorations, massive chandeliers, and luxurious interiors designed for Portuguese royalty. Every room reflects elegance, power, and the rich lifestyle of Europe's royal families during the 18th century. Fun fact, Queluz National Palace became famous for hosting royal parties, celebrations, and luxurious events for Portuguese kings and nobles. History. Built during the 18th century, the palace served as an important royal residence for Portuguese royalty. Over time, it became one of Portugal's most iconic symbols of luxury, elegance, and aristocratic architecture. Best time to visit: April to June blossom. Travel tips: explore the royal gardens slowly because the palace grounds are massive. Morning visits are best for peaceful photography and softer lighting. Sunset gives the fountains and golden walls a cinematic glow. Price: €10 (950 rupee INR). Today's 6th Sintra famous palace is Castle of the Moors. High above the mountains of Sintra stands one of Portugal's most ancient and breathtaking royal fortresses, the Castle of the Moors. Surrounded by foggy forests, giant cliffs, and endless mountain scenery, this legendary castle feels less like a real place and more like a forgotten fantasy kingdom hidden above the clouds. Built with massive stone walls stretching across the mountains, the castle offers some of the most cinematic views in all of Sintra. During cloudy weather, the ancient pathways and fortress walls slowly disappear into thick fog, creating an atmosphere that feels mysterious, magical, and unreal at the same time. As travelers walk along the giant medieval walls, the views become absolutely breathtaking. From the top of the fortress, you can see Sintra's colorful palaces, green forests, and distant Atlantic landscapes stretching across the horizon. Fun fact, the Castle of the Moors was built more than 1,000 years ago, and during heavy fog, parts of the fortress completely vanish into the clouds, making the castle look like a floating kingdom in the sky. History. The Castle of the Moors was originally constructed during the 8th and 9th centuries by the Moors, who controlled large parts of the Iberian Peninsula during medieval times. The fortress was designed to protect Sintra's mountain region and became one of Portugal's most important defensive strongholds. Over the centuries, the castle witnessed battles, royal expansion, and the rise of Portuguese kingdoms, turning it into one of Sintra's most historic landmarks. Best time to visit: March to May. Cherry blossom. Travel tips: wear good walking shoes because climbing the fortress walls requires steep uphill paths. Foggy weather creates the most magical cinematic atmosphere. Early morning visits offer peaceful views before crowds arrive. Carry a light jacket because mountain winds can become cold. Price: €12 1150 rupee INR. Today's fifth Sintra famous palace is Seteais Palace. Hidden within the magical hills of Sintra, Seteais Palace feels like a fantasy world created from multiple civilizations and architectural styles combined into one breathtaking royal masterpiece. Surrounded by giant tropical gardens, colorful pathways, and peaceful mountain scenery, this palace is one of the most visually unique destinations in Portugal. The moment travelers enter Seteais Palace, the architecture immediately feels unreal. Giant arches, detailed carvings, exotic domes, and colorful interiors create an atmosphere that feels both royal and magical at the same time. Every section of the palace reflects a different artistic influence, making the entire structure feel like a palace built from imagination itself. What makes Seteais even more special are its enormous botanical gardens filled with rare plants, waterfalls, hidden pathways, and exotic trees collected from different parts of the world. Walking through the gardens feels like entering a fantasy jungle surrounding a royal palace hidden deep inside the mountains. Fun fact: Seteais Palace combines Indian, Gothic, and Islamic architectural styles together, creating one of Europe's most unique royal palaces. Its gardens also contain rare plants brought from countries across the world. History: Seteais Palace was built during the 19th century by wealthy British owners living in Portugal. Over time, it became famous for its exotic architecture, luxurious design, and breathtaking gardens that attracted travelers, artists, and explorers from around the world. Best time to visit: April to June, Blackson with rays. Travel tips: explore the palace gardens slowly because the pathways are massive and filled with hidden scenic spots. Morning visits provide the best lighting for cinematic photography and videos. Carry water while exploring because the garden area is extremely large. Foggy weather makes the palace look even more magical and dreamlike. Price: €12 1150 rupee INR. Today's fourth Sintra famous palace is Quinta da Reglera. Deep within the foggy mountains of Sintra lies one of the most mysterious and magical palaces in all of Europe, Quinta da Reglera. Surrounded by Gothic towers, hidden tunnels, underground caves, and dark fantasy gardens, this palace feels less like a real destination and more like a secret world hidden beneath the mountains. The moment travelers enter Quinta da Reglera, the atmosphere immediately changes. Ancient stone pathways disappear into forests, mysterious staircases lead underground, and hidden tunnels connect different sections of the palace like a giant fantasy labyrinth. Every corner feels cinematic, mysterious, and slightly unreal. The most famous attraction here is the legendary Initiation Well, a giant spiral staircase descending deep underground that looks like a portal into another world. During foggy weather, the entire palace becomes even more magical, with mist slowly moving through Gothic towers and hidden gardens. Fun fact: secret underground tunnels connect different parts of the palace, and the mysterious Initiation Well is believed to symbolize ancient ceremonial rituals and spiritual journeys. History: Quinta da Reglera was built during the early 20th century by wealthy Portuguese businessman Antonio Carvalho Monteiro. Inspired by Gothic architecture, mythology, secret symbolism, and fantasy design, he transformed the estate into one of Portugal's most unique and mysterious landmarks. Best time to visit: March to May cherry blossom. Travel tips. Explore underground tunnels carefully because some pathways are dark and narrow. Foggy weather creates the most cinematic atmosphere. Visit early morning for peaceful exploration before crowds arrive. Wear comfortable shoes because the palace grounds are massive. Price: €15 1450 rupee INR. Today's third Sintra famous palace is Palace of Paine Gardens. Surrounding the magical mountains of Sintra, the Paine Gardens feel like a giant fantasy world hidden around the famous royal palace. Filled with peaceful lakes, exotic plants, ancient forests, and hidden pathways, these gardens create one of the most beautiful and cinematic landscapes in Portugal. As travelers walk through the gardens, every pathway reveals something different. Giant trees covered in fog, secret viewpoints above the mountains, colorful flowers, and peaceful lakes reflecting the magical scenery around them. The atmosphere feels calm, dreamlike, and completely unreal during foggy mornings. Fun fact: thousands of rare plants from around the world were brought here during the 19th century, transforming the gardens into a massive royal botanical paradise filled with hidden scenic spots. History. The Paine Gardens were built alongside Paine Palace during the 19th century as part of the Royal Mountain Estate. Portuguese royalty designed the gardens to create a peaceful fantasy landscape surrounding the palace. Best time to visit: spring season, cherry blossom. Travel tips. Spend extra time exploring hidden forest pathways because many scenic viewpoints remain hidden from tourists. Carry water for long walks through the massive gardens. Early morning visits create the most magical cinematic atmosphere. Price: €10 950 rupee INR. Today's second Sintra famous palace is Paine Palace. Standing high above the mountains of Sintra, Paine Palace is one of the most colorful and magical castles in the world. With giant towers, vibrant red and yellow walls, and clouds moving around the palace, the entire place feels like a real-life fantasy kingdom floating above the mountains. During foggy weather, the palace becomes even more breathtaking as parts of the castle slowly disappear into the clouds, creating cinematic views that look completely unreal. Fun fact: Paine Palace inspired many fantasy castle designs around the world because of its magical architecture and dreamlike atmosphere. History. Built during the Romanticism era, Paine Palace was created as a royal summer residence for Portuguese royalty and later became one of Portugal's most iconic landmarks. Best time to visit: March to May, cherry blossom. Travel tips. Visit early morning for fewer tourists and peaceful views. Foggy weather creates the best cinematic atmosphere for photography and videos. Price: €14 1350 rupee INR. Today's number one Sintra famous palace is Quinta da Reglera. सिंत्रा के हार्ट में छुपा हुआ ये पैलेस किसी रियल लोकेशन से ज्यादा एक डार्क फैंटेसी वर्ल्ड जैसा फील होता है। मिस्टीरियस फॉरेस्ट्स, गॉथिक टावर्स, सीक्रेट टनल्स और अंडरग्राउंड पैसेजेस सब मिलकर इस जगह को एक सिनेमैटिक इल्यूजन बना देते हैं। यहाँ का एटमॉस्फेयर इंस्टेंटली चेंज हो जाता है। जैसे ही तुम एंटर करते हो, लगता है तुम किसी हिडन रॉयल मिस्ट्री वर्ल्ड में आ गए हो जहां हर पास एक सीक्रेट स्टोरी छुपाए बैठा है। फन फैक्ट: क्विंटा डा रेगलेरा का फेमस इनिशिएशन वेल एक स्पाइरल अंडरग्राउंड स्टेयरकेस है जो एक सिंबॉलिक पोर्टल जैसा फील देता है, और इसको देखने लोग लिटरली अदर वर्ल्ड एंट्रेंस बोलते हैं। हिस्ट्री. ये पैलेस अर्ली 1900s में मिलियनेयर एंटोनियो कार्वाल्हो मोंटीरो ने बनवाया था, जिसका विजन था एक सिंबॉलिक, मिस्टिकल और आर्किटेक्चरल फैंटेसी एस्टेट क्रिएट करना। Best time to visit: March to May cherry blossom, September to October fallen leaf. Travel tips: हिडन टनल्स को स्लोली एक्सप्लोर करो, हर कॉर्नर में मिस्ट्री फील होता है। क्लाउडी या फॉगी वेदर में पैलेस और भी सिनेमैटिक लगता है। प्राइस: €15 1450 rupee INR. So that was the end of episode 118 of Dynamic Expeditions. If you enjoyed these royal palaces, tell me in the comments which palace was your favorite. The most interesting comment gets pinned. Push pin, like, subscribe and turn on notifications bell. Because episode 119 is coming with royal historical monuments around the world. Adventure never ends. New journeys every day at 7:45 p.m. only on Dynamic Expeditions. Globe showing Europe Africa sparkles.